For an investigator, nothing is more frustrating than a case which is never solved. In recent years, some law enforcement agencies have enlisted the help of psychics when all conventional techniques have failed. Such was a case when Oregon authorities contacted John Catchings, a well-known psychic who's assisted in dozens of criminal investigations. In the disturbing disappearance of a young woman, Catchings had a number of detailed premonitions which even the most skeptical among us cannot simply dismiss as mere coincidence. July 4th, 1982, Salem, Oregon. Just after 10 p.m., police discovered an abandoned pizza delivery car on a remote road just outside of town. The driver was missing. The car's engine was left running. Pizzas were scattered on the ground. Authorities later determined that the missing driver, 18-year-old Sherryeyerly, had been abducted while en route to an address that did not exist. 1 month later, Dallas, Texas. At around 3 a.m., psychic investigator John Catchings awoke from a sound sleep.
I turned over in bed, and as I did, I saw an attractive-looking girl standing there. It looked so real that it made me think, just for an instant, there's someone in the room. And then I realized it's not really a physical person, but an apparition, an appearance, a ghost. Being a psychic all my life, growing up in this environment, it sounds strange, but to me it wasn't that strange a thing. As soon as I figured out what it was, I thought it was interesting. I thought there's perhaps some message, some reason for this to occur.
We've received a packet from Salem, Oregon.
Salem, Oregon. 4 days later, John Catchings received a file on Sherryeyerly's case from police in Salem, Oregon.
Missing person, foul play suspected.
On top of it was an 8x10 photograph. And immediately, when I saw it, I said, that's who was in our bedroom the other night. First impressions that I had was that this was not a missing person. This was a homicide, that this girl was dead.
Authorities had contacted Catchings at the request of Sherryeyerly's parents.
Well, I guess you hope anything works. At that time, of course, we were very, very emotional. We wanted to find her, and we were hoping that that was an avenue.
If you lose a child in an accident, like a car accident or something, you can understand it. I mean, the pain and the loss is still there, but at least you know what happened. And with this, if you let your mind wander, it can be a total nightmare because you can imagine what might or might not have happened.
The immediate impression psychically I got was sudden, violent, abduction, a lot of fear, a lot of terror, and it was somebody that she recognized and knew, but was not somebody that was a close friend.
Read me some of the report.
Sherryeyerly, an 18-year-old woman, 5.
As we were going through the report, I had a vision, a picture in my mind of a house. It was a white house. The door was open. It looked like there were stairs just inside the door somewhere. As I looked at the house, then superimposed over the house were white pillars or posts. Just like another picture was stamped over that one. They didn't belong there, but it's like a piece of the puzzle. It had to be that it fit there somewhere close. It was involved, it was important. Just didn't quite understand what that meant at that time.
After reviewing the case, John Catchings traveled to Oregon. He was escorted to the scene of Sherry's abduction by Detective Sergeant Will Hingston.
So, the car was here, stopped here, with the lights on.
Mr. Catchings wanted to see where Sherryeyerly's car was found, in hopes that he could get some good feelings about where Sherry's body might be if, in fact, she was up in that area.
It's hard to explain what impressions or feelings. It's just kind of a creepy kind of feeling that you get with the hair standing up on the back of your neck that says something's not right, something is out of place. And what I envisioned in my mind, the flashes, the pictures I got, were of Sherry in her car coming down the road slowly with her lights on. And she's looking for an address that she can't find. She's been down this road a time or two already. She's approached by another vehicle. It's a pickup truck. It's got a lot of lights on it. It's coming toward her. It slows down and stops.
I'm the one that ordered the pizza. I gave you the wrong address. Sorry.
A guy gets out. He's congenial, friendly. Sherry is glad to see somebody, opens the door, gets ready, to hand him the pizzas.
Oh my God! No! Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! Get your son in the room. Get him! Shut up!
A lot of terror and trauma. I mean, one of the things you pick up as a psychic is, where did something bad happen? Impressions of violent acts or terror or trauma sometimes linger at a place for a while. And it had that kind of feel to it. Still does. It's a spooky place.
We didn't come up with anything.
As we're going through the site where this abduction had occurred, I asked Detective Hingston if they had a list of people that drove this green-colored pickup truck that had been reported in the area. And he said that they had such a list and began to read to me some names off the list.
Michael Jenkins, Darrell J. Wilson.
What was that name?
And when we got to the name Darrell J. Wilson, I said, we need to find out more about this guy. He interests me. There's something wrong here.
Darrell Wilson became a suspect when an individual contacted us and told us that he owned a lime green pickup, which was painted a root beer brown approximately 8 days after Sherry Eyerly disappeared. In addition, this individual told us that Darrell Wilson also knew Sherry Eyerly, had an acquaintance of her, and that he also knew another young girl that had disappeared from the Salem area about the same time.
John Catchings asked Sergeant Hingston to take him to Darrell Wilson's home.
It was the house that I saw in my vision back in Dallas.
That's the house. That's the house that I saw.
And Detective Hingston said, well, he doesn't live in the house. He lives behind the house in an apartment. So we drove around the block and down the alley in the back of the house, and I saw a carport, and it was supported by these white pillars and posts. And I knew that was what I'd seen superimposed on my vision in Dallas, and that made me even stronger that we were looking at the right guy. Standing the other side of those pillars and posts was Darrell J. Wilson.
Fine, how are you? Listen, I just thought I'd drop by, talk to you a little bit more, and see if you hadn't changed your mind about taking that polygraph.
And Darrell said, no, I don't believe in polygraphs, so I won't take a polygraph. But then he said a very strange thing. He said, but I would talk to a psychic. Detective Hingston had kind of a shocked look on his face, and he said, well, let me introduce you to one.
John Catchings.
And I shook Darrell's hand, and it was cold and clammy and limp, and I knew that he knew that I knew that he was responsible for this.
2 hours later, Sergeant Hingston and John Catchings received an emergency radio call to report back to Darrell Wilson's home. The suspect had taken his own life.
My first reaction was anger because he didn't leave us any note that would tell us where we might locate Sherry Eyerly's body. I'm 98% confident that Darrell Wilson was involved with Sherry Eyerly's disappearance. I also feel very confident that there were at least one other individual involved with Darrell in Sherry's disappearance.
There are no guarantees in psychic phenomena. There are no absolutes. I'm not God, I can't walk on water, and I'm not always right. But from a psychic perspective, as sure as I can be, Darrell Wilson was involved in this girl's death.
I can't say that I'm a believer or a non-believer. unfortunately, in this case, the main thing we wanted to do is to find out what happened to her and to find her remains. I know in my own heart that she's gone and nothing's going to ever bring her back. So if we could just find the body, then we could at least bury her and we could go on.
Authorities are confident that Darrell Wilson was involved in the disappearance of Sherry Eyerly, but are convinced that he did not act alone. If you have any information regarding this case, please contact the Marion County, Oregon Sheriff's Department or call our toll-free number, 1-800-876-5353.